The pen rested in her palm. "Begin recording," she said clearly. In the gallery, the crowd pressed closer to the windows. Hundreds of the council chamber doors closed with a heavy sound that echoed through the empty halls. Jiwoo walked slowly back to the human quarters, her mind racing with thoughts about what would happen next. The vote was coming soon and everything depended on it. Taeyang walked beside her, his face serious. "They're scared of us now. That's good and bad. Scared people make poor partners," Jiwoo said quietly. "We need them to trust us, not fear us." Hyejin was already in their quarters when they arrived, surrounded by data screens floating in the low gravity. "You need to see this," she said, pulling up various alien news feeds. The screen showed talking heads from dozens of different species, all discussing humanity. A Horthax news anchor was showing replay footage of the pen cracking the floor. A Velkari scientist was running calculations about human strength. A Nimari commentator was asking whether humans were too dangerous to allow into galactic space. "Gravitational monsters," one headline read. "Deathworld species seeks entry to civilized space," said another. "Should we fear Earth's children?" asked a third. Jiwoo sat down heavily. Even in the light gravity, she felt tired. "We showed them our strength. Now they think we're warriors who will crush them, aren't we?" Taeyang asked. "We could dominate this entire civilization if we wanted to." "But we don't want to," Jiwoo said firmly. "That's what we need to make them understand." A soft chime interrupted their conversation. A message appeared on Jiwoo's personal screen. It was from Theshalan, the Council Prime. The message was brief. "Private meeting requested. Conference room 7. 1 hour." Jiwoo looked at her team. "This is it. Theshalan wants to talk before the vote." "Could be a trap," Taeyang said, his military training showing. "Or an opportunity," Hyejin countered. Theshalan seemed more reasonable than the others. "Only one way to find out," Jiwoo said, standing up. "I'll go alone. If this goes badly, you two need to be ready to get our people off this station." Taeyang started to protest, but Jiwoo raised her hand. "That's an order, Captain." Conference room 7 was small and private, tucked away in a quiet section of the station. When Jiwoo entered, she noticed immediately that the gravity had been adjusted. It felt heavier than the standard station gravity. Not Earth-heavy, but noticeably stronger. Theshalan floated in the center of the room, its tendrils moving slowly. "Thank you for coming, Ambassador Jiwoo. I adjusted the gravity to 0.5, a compromise between our preferences." "I noticed," Jiwoo said, sitting in one of the chairs. "That was thoughtful. I wanted us to meet on equal ground as much as possible." Theshalan's tendrils formed patterns that Jiwoo was learning to read. This one seemed to indicate concern. "We need to speak honestly, away from the politics and posturing of the full council." "I'm listening." "Your demonstration was very effective. Too effective, perhaps. You've proven that humans are physically superior to every other species in the council. You've shown that your technology is stronger, your ships are faster, and your people can work in conditions that would kill us." Jiwoo nodded, but said nothing. "There are delegates who now want to quarantine Earth," Theshalan continued. "They want to forbid humans from leaving your solar system. They fear that if we allow humans into galactic space, you will eventually dominate everything." "We came here for trade, not conquest," Jiwoo said. "So you say. But words are easy, Ambassador. Actions matter. And your actions have shown us that you could conquer us if you wished." Theshalan's tendrils curled tightly. "How can we trust that you won't?" Jiwoo was quiet for a moment, thinking carefully about her answer. "Council Prime, may I ask you something?" "Of course. How many wars has the Galactic Council dealt with in the last 100 years?" Theshalan's tendrils relaxed slightly. 14 major conflicts and 37 smaller disputes. "Why do you ask? And how many of those were solved by military force?" "None," Theshalan admitted. "We don't believe in solving problems through violence. We use diplomacy, negotiation, economic pressure. Sometimes we send peacekeeping observers to watch over disputed areas, but we never use force." "Exactly," Jiwoo said, leaning forward. "Your civilization is built on cooperation because fighting doesn't make sense in your world. In low gravity, everything is fragile. Ships break easily. Stations can be destroyed by small weapons. Violence is too dangerous when everything is built so delicately." "Yes, that's true. Earth is different," Jiwoo continued. "On Earth, violence is always possible. We have a terrible history, Council Prime. We've fought wars that killed millions of people. We built weapons that could destroy our entire planet. We know exactly how horrible war can be. The Shallan's tendrils went very still. That doesn't comfort me, Ambassador. It should, Jiwoo said firmly. Because we learned from it. We didn't become peaceful because fighting was impractical. We became peaceful because fighting was too easy, too destructive, too terrible. We chose to cooperate because we saw what happened when we didn't. She stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. Humans unified under a single government 200 years ago. Not because we suddenly became nice to each other. We did it because we realized that if we kept fighting, we would destroy ourselves completely. You're saying humans are naturally violent but have learned to control it? I'm saying we understand violence in a way you don't have to, Jiwoo said. You fear our strength, but you should understand our restraint. Yes, we're stronger than you. But we're also very, very good at controlling that strength. We've had to be. The Shallan was silent for a long time. Finally, the Council Prime spoke again. What can you offer to prove this? Let me show you something different, Jiwoo said. Let me show you what humans do when we're not trying to intimidate anyone. Let me show you what we build when we want to help instead of hurt. 4 hours later, the maintenance bay was filled with curious aliens. Word had spread that the humans were going to do another demonstration. The observation gallery was packed again, though the mood was more cautious this time. Nobody was laughing anymore. Jiwoo stood in the bay with Hee-jin beside her. Between them was a large container marked with Earth symbols. Thank you for coming, Jiwoo said, her voice carrying through the speakers. Today we want to show you something different. Not a weapon, not a show of strength. Something we actually use. Hee-jin opened the container. Inside were pieces of equipment and materials that looked incredibly heavy. Thick metal beams, dense panels, compact machinery. This is a standard Earth disaster relief kit, Hee-jin explained, lifting one of the metal beams with both hands. Several aliens gasped. The beam should have needed a machine to lift it, but Hee-jin moved it easily in the low gravity. On Earth, this beam weighs 80 kilograms, Hee-jin continued. Here it weighs about 24 kilograms. But weight isn't the point. Strength is. Tae-yang activated a holographic display showing test results. Numbers and graphs filled the air. These materials can survive 10 times Earth's gravity. They can handle temperature changes of 500 degrees. They can be hit by objects moving at high speed without breaking. We built them to save lives in the worst possible conditions. This single kit can build a shelter for 50 people, Jiwoo added. It can protect them for 3 months in environments that would kill unprotected people in minutes. Extreme gravity, deadly radiation, toxic atmospheres, extreme temperatures. We designed this kit for the worst planets we could imagine. A Velkari scientist named Reshalin spoke through the intercom. Why are you showing us this? Because this is what Earth's gravity taught us to build, Jiwoo answered. Not weapons. Not warships. We built these to save lives. Yes, our technology is stronger than yours, but we use that strength to protect people, not hurt them. She walked among the equipment, touching each piece gently. Every human colony ship carries 10 of these kits. Every deep space mission has at least 5. We've used them to save people from station failures, ship crashes, and colony disasters. In the last 50 years, these kits have saved over 20,000 lives. Human lives. Krixthor's voice came from the gallery. Not alien lives. Because we haven't met any aliens until now, Jiwoo said simply. But we're offering to share this technology with the Council. Free of charge. Anyone who needs it can have it. Silence filled the bay. Free? Vulesh asked, its voice full of suspicion. Why would you give this away? Because that's what you do when disaster strikes, Jiwoo said. On Earth, when there's an earthquake or a flood or a fire, people help each other. It doesn't matter if you're rich or poor, strong or weak. When someone needs help, you help them. She picked up one of the smaller tools from the kit. We're not asking you to trust us because we're weak. We're asking you to trust us because we know what it means to be strong and choose to use that strength to help instead of hurt. Tae-yang stepped forward. We want access to your trade routes. We want to sell our manufactured goods and our engineering expertise at fair prices. But the safety equipment, the disaster relief kits, the rescue technology, that's free, always. For anyone who needs it, and in return? Vexen asked from the gallery. In return, we get to be part of your civilization, Jiwoo said. We get to trade. Part 1. The massive crystal station floated in the darkness between stars. Inside, Ambassador Jiwoo walked through halls filled with creatures she had only seen in videos. Some slithered on dozens of thin legs. Others floated like jellyfish in water. A few stomped past on thick armored limbs that clicked against the floor. She felt weightless with each step. The station's gravity was set to 0.3 Earth normal, which meant everything weighed less than a third of what it should. For Jiwoo, walking felt like bouncing on a trampoline. She had to concentrate to avoid floating into the ceiling. Captain Tae-yang walked beside her, his military uniform crisp despite the strange gravity. Behind them, Dr. Hye-jin struggled with a floating datapad that kept drifting away from her hands. "This is humiliating," Hye-jin muttered, finally catching the datapad. "We look like children learning to walk." "We look exactly how they expect us to look," Tae-yang replied quietly. "Like creatures from a death world who can't function in civilized space." Jiwoo said nothing. She knew he was right. Every alien they passed stared at the humans with expressions that ranged from curiosity to pity. Some even made sounds that the translation devices rendered as laughter. The council chamber was enormous. Hundreds of delegates from dozens of species filled the tiered seating. The ceiling disappeared into darkness above them. Holographic displays floated in the air, showing star maps and trade route diagrams. Jiwoo found the human section and sat down carefully. The chair was designed for low-gravity species and felt like sitting on clouds. She missed the solid weight of Earth furniture. A creature made entirely of floating tendrils called the meeting to order. The translation device in Jiwoo's ear identified it as Theshalan, the Council Prime. "We gather to discuss the human petition for trade access," Theshalan announced. Its voice sounded like wind through trees. "However, several members have raised concerns about human suitability for galactic commerce." An armored creature with 6 legs stood up. Its name appeared on Jiwoo's datapad. Krixthor of the Horthax clans. Suitability? Krixthor's mandibles clicked in what the translator called laughter. "These creatures come from a world with gravity so intense it would crush most of us flat. They're biological anomalies. How can they possibly contribute to our trade networks when they can barely walk in normal environments?" Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Jiwoo felt her face grow warm but kept her expression neutral. "If I may respond," she began, standing slowly. "You may not," interrupted a floating gas bag creature named Vulesh. "We've seen the reports. Your species requires constant accommodation. Your ships must maintain crushing gravity levels or your bodies deteriorate. You need special equipment everywhere you go. You're cosmic invalids who expect the rest of us to care for you." More laughter. Louder this time. The sounds were alien, but the mockery was universal. Tae-yang's jaw clenched. His hand formed a fist. Jiwoo touched his arm gently. "Not yet. Perhaps a demonstration would be more productive," Jiwoo said, keeping her voice calm. "We brought equipment that could show—" "Demonstrations won't change biology," Krixthor interrupted. "Your bones are absurdly dense. Your muscles are grotesquely overdeveloped. You're built for a brutal world that shouldn't have produced intelligence at all. Frankly, it's remarkable your species survived long enough to develop space travel." Theshalan's tendrils rippled. "The concerns are valid, Ambassador Jiwoo. Perhaps humanity should focus on developing within your own solar system for another few centuries. When you've adapted to more reasonable gravity environments through genetic modification or cybernetic enhancement, we can revisit this discussion." It was a dismissal wrapped in diplomatic language, a polite way of saying humans weren't welcome. Jiwoo looked at her team. Hye-jin's shoulders had slumped in defeat. Tae-yang looked like he wanted to hit something. Around them, alien delegates were already moving on to other business, dismissing humans as irrelevant. Then Jiwoo noticed something. A small object was floating downward in the low gravity, drifting like a feather. Her pen had somehow slipped from her folder and was making its slow descent to the floor. She watched it fall. On Earth, it would have hit the ground in half a second. Here it took almost 3 seconds, floating lazily through the air. The pen finally touched down with barely a sound. Jiwoo stared at it. An idea began forming in her mind. A dangerous idea, a brilliant idea. "Council Prime," she said clearly, her voice cutting through the chamber's chatter. "May I ask a question?" Theshalan's tendrils waved permission. "Speak." "What is the average gravity of worlds that produce spacefaring civilizations?" Hye-jin looked up from her datapad, confused. Then understanding dawned on her face. "Between 0.3 and 0.5 standard," Hye-jin answered. "Earth's gravity is 1.0 standard, nearly triple the galactic average." "And how many high-gravity worlds have produced spacefaring species?" Jiwoo continued. Silence fell over the chamber. "None," Vulesh finally admitted. Yours is the first and only. It's a statistical anomaly, a fluke of evolution, or, Jiwoo said softly, bending to pick up her pen, it's an advantage you haven't recognized yet. She held the pen up for everyone to see. It was just a simple writing instrument, the kind she'd carried since her university days. This pen weighs approximately 10 grams on Earth, she said. Here in your comfortable environment, it weighs 3 grams. When I dropped it just now, it fell so slowly I could have caught it multiple times before it reached the floor. She paused, letting her words settle. On Earth, when I drop this pen, it falls with enough force to— To what? Crixthor scoffed. Bruise your finger? Dent your desk? Jiwoo smiled. It wasn't a warm expression. Would the council permit me to conduct a simple demonstration? Tomorrow, in a controlled environment. I'll need access to a gravity-adjustable chamber and a standard durability testing floor. The Shallan's tendrils moved uncertainly. For what purpose? I'm going to drop a pen, Jiwoo said. In Earth gravity. I think you'll find the results very educational. The chamber erupted in confused chatter. Several delegates made sounds that suggested they thought Jiwoo had lost her mind. Drop a pen? As a demonstration? What could that possibly prove? But some of the scientists looked intrigued. Shallan, a Velkari researcher, was already pulling up calculations on her datapad. This is absurd, Crixthor declared. We're wasting time on theatrical nonsense. Nevertheless, Shallan said slowly, the request is reasonable. Ambassador Jiwoo may conduct her demonstration tomorrow morning. The council will observe. Jiwoo bowed slightly. Thank you, Council Prime. As the session adjourned, Taeyang leaned close to Jiwoo. What are you planning? Jiwoo looked at the pen in her hand. It seemed so ordinary, so harmless. I'm going to teach them about Earth, she said quietly. I'm going to show them what our gravity really means. What it makes us. What it makes our technology. Heejin's eyes widened. The pen. It's not actually— Tomorrow, Jiwoo interrupted gently. Let's save the surprise for tomorrow. That night in their quarters, Jiwoo prepared. She didn't sleep much. Her mind raced with calculations, with contingency plans, with the knowledge that tomorrow would either open the galaxy to humanity or close it forever. The aliens thought Earth's gravity was a weakness. They thought humans were fragile creatures who needed constant care and accommodation. They saw the crushing weight that humans lived under every single day as a disability. Tomorrow, Jiwoo would show them the truth. Tomorrow, she would drop a pen, and the galaxy would learn that Earth's gravity wasn't humanity's weakness. It was their greatest strength. Part 2. Morning came too quickly. Jiwoo stood in the preparation room, adjusting her gravity compensation suit. Through the transparent wall, she could see the testing chamber, a perfect cube with crystal walls and a floor made of reinforced composite material. The observation gallery above was packed. It seemed like every delegate in the entire station had come to watch. Word had spread overnight. The humans wanted to drop a pen in their crushing gravity. It was the most entertainment the council had seen in months. Heejin checked Jiwoo's suit one final time. The readings are good. The suit will handle the gravity transition without problems. And the floor? Jiwoo asked. Taeyang looked up from his datapad. Exactly as I thought. The specifications are public record. The floor is rated for 5,000 newtons of impact force, more than enough for any normal galactic activity. But not for Earth normal, Jiwoo finished. Not even close. Taeyang confirmed with a slight smile. Through the window, Jiwoo could see Crixthor in the front row of the gallery. His mandibles were spread wide in anticipation. Vulesh bobbed beside him, the gas bag's membrane rippling with what looked like amusement. Even the skeptical scientists had come, their instruments ready to record whatever happened. A technician's voice crackled through the intercom. Testing chamber ready, Ambassador. Gravity systems online. We can adjust to your specifications on your command. Jiwoo took a deep breath and walked to the chamber door. It slid open with a soft hiss. She stepped inside and the door sealed behind her. The chamber was completely empty except for her. No furniture, no equipment. Nothing but empty space and the reinforced floor beneath her feet. She stood in the center and held up her hand. It was made of tungsten carbide, one of the densest materials humanity had available. It weighed not part one. The Galactic Council chamber was huge. It floated in space between the stars, a massive ring made of crystal that sparkled under distant suns. Today, humans were visiting for the first time. Jiwoo walked through the entrance and felt small. The aliens around her were tall, strange, and moved in ways that looked impossible. Some slithered on thin strings like floating spiders. Others stomped on 6 legs with hard shells covering their bodies. A few simply floated in the air like balloons filled with gas. The gravity here felt wrong to Jiwoo. Everything was too light. When she walked, she almost flew with each step. The council had set the gravity to 0.3 g, which meant everything weighed much less than it should. For the aliens, this was normal. For Jiwoo, it felt like walking on the moon. She found her seat next to Captain Tae-yang and Dr. Hee-jin. Tae-yang sat straight and serious, like a soldier should. Hee-jin was reading something on her tablet and looked worried. "How are we doing?" Jiwoo asked quietly. "They're going to laugh at us," Hee-jin whispered back. Jiwoo knew she was probably right. In the meetings before today, the aliens had made jokes about humans. They thought Earth's gravity was crazy. They couldn't understand how anyone could live on a planet that was always trying to crush them into the ground. A tall alien with floating strings for a body called the Meeting to Order. Its name was Theshalan, and it was the leader of the council. Its voice came through a small device in Jiwoo's ear that translated alien languages. "We are here to discuss the human request for trade routes," Theshalan said, "but many members have concerns about human physical limitations." An alien with a hard shell and 6 legs started making clicking sounds. The translator turned it into laughter. His name was Crixthor. "Limitations? That's putting it nicely," Crixthor said. "Humans come from a world that tries to kill them every second. Their own planet crushes them. How can they help us when they can barely move in normal gravity?" Other aliens made sounds that meant they agreed. Jiwoo stood up slowly. In the light gravity, she had to be careful not to push too hard and fly into the air. "We may come from a high-gravity world, but that has made you weak everywhere else," another alien interrupted. This one was named Vulish, and it looked like a floating bubble. "You need special equipment just to survive in our spaces. Your ships must copy your crushing gravity or your bodies fall apart. You're like sick people who need constant care." More laughter filled the room. Clicks, hisses, bubbles, and strange sounds from dozens of different alien species. Tae-yang's face got tight with anger, but Jiwoo touched his arm gently. "Not yet," she thought. "Maybe we could show you what we can do instead of just talking," Jiwoo said. "We brought equipment that showing us things won't change biology," Crixthor interrupted again. "Your species is too heavy, too dense for the rest of the galaxy. Even your bones are thick like rocks. Your muscles are huge compared to ours. You're built to survive on a planet that shouldn't have smart life at all." The Shaolin moved its string-like body in a way that seemed kind. "The concerns are real, Ambassador Jiwoo. Perhaps humans should stay in your own solar system for a few more centuries. When you've changed to fit normal environments better, we can talk again." It was a polite way of saying no, a gentle rejection. Jiwoo felt the weight of failure on her shoulders. In this light gravity, that was the only weight she could feel. She looked at Hee-jin, who seemed sad. Tae-yang looked like stone. Then Jiwoo saw her pen. It was a simple pen, the kind she had carried since school. It had somehow fallen from her papers and was floating down slowly in the low gravity. On Earth, it would have hit the floor in less than a second. Here it took several seconds, drifting like a feather. She watched it fall, this tiny piece of Earth, and an idea formed in her mind. The pen finally touched the floor with the softest tap imaginable. "May I ask a question?" Jiwoo said clearly. The Shaolin waved a string at her. "Speak. What is the normal gravity of planets that have smart species?" "Between 0.3 and 0.5 g, Hee-jin answered automatically, then understood what Jiwoo was doing. "Earth is 1.0 g, almost 3 times the normal amount. And how many high-gravity worlds have species that can travel in space?" Jiwoo asked. The room became quiet. "None," Vulesh finally said. "Yours is the first. It's strange. Just luck." "Or," Jiwoo said softly, reaching down to pick up her pen, "it's an advantage you don't understand yet." She held the pen up so everyone could see it. "This pen weighs about 10 grams on Earth. Here, in your comfortable environment, it weighs 3 grams. When I dropped it just now, it fell so slowly I could have caught it 3 times. She stopped talking for a moment to let that sink in. "On Earth, when I drop this pen, it falls with enough force to do what?" Crixthor said mockingly. Hurt your finger? Jiwoo smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. Would the council let me do a simple demonstration? Tomorrow in a controlled room. I'll need access to a room where you can change the gravity, and a normal testing floor. Theshalin's strings waved with uncertainty. Why? I'm going to drop a pen, Jiwoo said. In Earth gravity, and I think you'll find it very interesting. The room became quiet again. Then small conversations started. Aliens were confused. Some were curious. Many thought it was funny. Drop a pen? In Earth gravity? What could possibly be interesting about that? But Theshalin agreed. Very well. Tomorrow morning. The council will observe, Jiwoo sat down. Tae-yang leaned close to her. What are you planning? He whispered. Jiwoo held up the pen and looked at it carefully. I'm going to show them what Earth gravity really means, she said quietly. I'm going to show them that what they think is our weakness is actually our strength. Hyejin looked at the pen, then at Jiwoo, then back at the pen. Understanding slowly appeared on her face. Oh, she said. Oh, that's clever. That night, Jiwoo prepared. She didn't sleep much. Tomorrow would change everything or end everything. The aliens thought humans were weak because of Earth's gravity. They thought the crushing weight that humans lived under every day was a disability. Tomorrow, Jiwoo would teach them a lesson about physics, about strength, and about what it meant to come from a world where everything was 3 times heavier than normal. Tomorrow, she would drop a pen, and the galaxy would learn to respect Earth's gravity. Part 2, the next morning. The observation gallery was packed with aliens. Word had spread through the Galactic Council faster than light. The humans wanted to drop a pen in their own gravity. It sounded ridiculous. It sounded hilarious. Many aliens came just to watch humans embarrass themselves one more time. Jiwoo arrived at the testing facility wearing a special suit that helped with gravity changes. Hyejin walked beside her, also in a suit. Tae-yang was checking equipment and looking at his tablet. Are you sure this will work? Hyejin asked nervously. If it doesn't, it will work, Jiwoo said. She held up the pen. The same pen from yesterday. Physics doesn't lie. But the floor is supposed to be very strong, Hyejin said. Strong for low gravity, Tae-yang said without looking up from his tablet. I checked the specifications. The floor can handle 5,000 newtons of force. That's more than enough for anything in 0.3 G. But not in 1.0 G, Jiwoo finished. Through the window, Jiwoo could see Krixthor in the gallery. His shell was shaking in a way that meant he was excited to see humans fail. Vulesh floated next to him, its bubble body wobbling with what looked like amusement. Even Theshalin had come to watch. A voice came through the speakers. Testing chamber is ready. We can change the gravity whenever you want, Ambassador. Jiwoo walked into the chamber. The door closed behind her with a hissing sound. She stood in the center of the room alone, holding nothing but a simple pen. Start recording, she said. In the gallery, the crowd pressed closer to the windows. Increase gravity to Earth standard, 1 full G. The change happened instantly. Jiwoo felt her full weight return all at once. Her knees bent slightly as her body remembered what real weight felt like. Her shoulders dropped. Her back compressed. It felt like coming home after a long trip. In the gallery, aliens made sounds of shock and fear. From their view, Jiwoo had just been hit by an invisible hammer, almost falling to her knees. She can barely stand, someone shouted. This is cruel, another voice said. Stop the test. But Jiwoo was already straightening up. Her body adjusted quickly. This was her gravity. This was the weight she carried every single day of her life. This was normal. She held up the pen. On Earth, she said clearly. This pen weighs 10 grams. When dropped from 1 meter high, it will fall for about 0.45 seconds before hitting the floor. She raised her arm, holding the pen at shoulder height. In your comfortable 0.3 G environment, the same fall takes 0.8 seconds, and when it hits, almost nothing happens. You've built your whole civilization around gentle physics, soft landings, easy environments. She opened her hand. The pen fell. To the aliens watching, it looked wrong. The pen didn't float lazily down. It dropped fast, accelerating at 9.8 meters per second squared, building speed and force with every moment. It hit the floor. The crack was loud even through the thick walls. The floor, which was supposed to be incredibly strong, hadn't been designed for Earth gravity. The pen, which the aliens thought weighed 10 grams, actually weighed. They mocked Earth's gravity, until she dropped a pen and it cracked the floor at HFY Science. Fiction story in 6 parts. Part 1. The Summit of Fools. The Galactic Council Chamber floated in the void between stars, a massive ring of crystalline architecture that had hosted diplomatic gatherings for 3,000 years. Today it welcomed humanity for the first time. Ambassador Jiwoo stood at the entrance to the Grand Chamber, her modest frame dwarfed by the towering aliens that shuffled past. The Velkari delegates slithered on dozens of thin tendrils, their bodies like living clouds of gossamer thread. The Horthaks stomped by on 6 legs, their carapaces gleaming under the artificial lights. The Nimari floated, their gas-filled bodies bobbing lazily in the low-gravity environment. The council chamber itself was a marvel, designed to accommodate species from across the galaxy. The gravity here was set to 0.3 G, a compromise that suited most spacefaring races. For Jiwoo, it felt like walking on the moon. She made her way to the human delegation's platform, where Captain Taeyang and Dr. Haijin were already seated. Taeyang gave her a slight nod, his military posture somehow still imposing even in the reduced gravity. Haijin, their xenobiologist, was frantically reviewing notes on her datapad. "How are we feeling?" Jiwoo asked, settling into her seat with practiced grace. "Like we're about to be laughed out of the galaxy," Haijin muttered. She wasn't wrong. The preliminary meetings had been humbling. Every species they'd encountered seemed to view Earth's high gravity as a bizarre cosmic joke, a death world that somehow spawned intelligent life despite its crushing. Hostile environment. The Council Prime, a Velkari elder named Theshalan, called the session to order. Its voice resonated through translators embedded in everyone's equipment. "We gather to address the human petition for trade routes through the outer spiral," Theshalan announced. "However, concerns have been raised about humanity's physical limitations." A Horthax delegate named Crixthor clicked his mandibles in what passed for laughter. Limitations? They're fragile creatures from a brutal world. Their own planet tries to crush them every moment of every day. How can they possibly contribute to galactic commerce when they can barely move in normal gravity? Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Jiwoo stood, her movements deliberate. "We may come from a high-gravity world, but that has made you weak in any practical environment," interrupted a Nimari called Vulesh, its voice bubbling through its translation membrane. "You require special accommodations everywhere you go. Your ships must simulate your crushing gravity or you deteriorate. You are cosmic invalids." More laughter echoed through the chamber, clicking, hissing, gurgling sounds from a dozen different species. Taeyang's jaw clenched, but Jiwoo placed a gentle hand on his arm. "Not yet." "Perhaps," Jiwoo said carefully. "A demonstration would be more productive than speculation. We've brought equipment that—" "Demonstrations won't change biology," Crixthor interrupted. "Your species is simply too dense, too heavy, too excessive for the wider galaxy. Even your bones are absurdly thick. Your muscles are grotesquely overdeveloped. You're built for survival on a world that shouldn't have produced intelligence at all." Theshalan rippled in what might have been sympathy. "The concerns are not without merit, Ambassador. Perhaps humanity would be better served developing within your own system for another few centuries. When you've adapted to more reasonable environments, we can revisit this petition." It was a polite dismissal, a cosmic rejection letter. Jiwoo felt the weight of failure settling on her shoulders, and in 0.3 G that was the only weight she could feel. She glanced at Haejin, who looked devastated. Taeyang's expression was stone. Then Jiwoo noticed the pen. It was a simple ballpoint pen, the kind she'd carried since her academy days. It had somehow slipped from her folder and was floating lazily downward in the reduced gravity, taking its sweet time to descend the half-meter to the platform floor. She watched it fall, this tiny piece of earth, and something crystallized in her mind. The pen touched down with the softest of taps. "May I ask a question?" Jiwoo said, her voice cutting through the dismissive chatter. Theshalan gestured with the tendril. "Speak. What is the average gravity of worlds that produce spacefaring civilizations?" "Between 0.3 and 0.5 G, Haejin answered reflexively, then caught on to what Jiwoo was doing. "Earth is 1.0 G, nearly triple the galactic average. And how many high-gravity worlds have produced spacefaring species?" Jiwoo asked. The chamber fell silent. "None," Vulesh finally admitted. Yours is the first. It's an anomaly. A fluke. Or, Jiwoo said softly, reaching down to pick up her pen, it's an advantage you don't yet understand. She held the pen up for all to see. This weighs approximately 10 grams on Earth. Here, in your comfortable environment, it weighs 3 grams. When I dropped it just now, it fell so slowly I could have caught it 3 times over. She paused, letting that sink in. On Earth, when I drop this pen, it falls with enough force to what? Crixthor scoffed. Bruise your finger? Jiwoo smiled. It wasn't a friendly expression. Would the council permit me a simple demonstration? Tomorrow, in a controlled environment, I'll need access to a gravity-adjustable chamber and a standard durability testing floor. Deshellen's tendrils waved uncertainly. For what purpose? I'm going to drop a pen, Jiwoo said, in Earth gravity, and I think you'll find it enlightening. Part 2. The test word spread through the Galactic Council faster than light-speed gossip. The humans wanted to drop a pen in their own gravity. It was absurd. It was hilarious. It was the most entertainment the Council had seen in months. By the time Jiwoo arrived at the testing facility the next morning, the observation gallery was packed. Hundreds of delegates from dozens of species crowded against the windows of the reinforced viewing area, eager to witness humanity make fools of themselves one final time, before being dismissed back to their heavy, brutal world. The testing chamber was a cube approximately 10 meters on each side, with walls made of reinforced crystal, transparent, but strong enough to contain small explosions. The floor was composed of standard station material, a titanium ceramic composite rated to withstand the weight of heavy cargo haulers and the impact of industrial equipment. Hyejin stood beside Jiwoo in the preparation room, both of them already wearing gravity compensation suits. Taeyang was running final checks on the equipment. Are you sure about this? Hyejin asked nervously. If this doesn't work, it'll work, Jiwoo said. She held up the pen. The same pen. Physics doesn't change just because we're not on Earth. But the floor is rated for impacts in low gravity, Taeyang interrupted, looking up from his data pad. The specifications are public record. Maximum impact rating of 5,000 newtons. That's more than enough for anything in 0.3 G. But not in 1.0 G. Jiwoo finished. Through the window she could see Crixthor in the gallery, his mandibles spread wide in anticipation. Fulesh bobbed next to him, its membrane rippling with what she'd learned to recognize as amusement. Even Theshalin had come to observe, though the Council Prime seemed more curious than mocking. A technician's voice crackled through the intercom. Chamber is ready. Gravity adjustment can be initiated on your command, Ambassador. Jiwoo stepped into the chamber. The door sealed behind her with a hiss. She stood in the center of the room alone, holding nothing but a simple pen. Begin recording, she said. In the gallery, the crowd pressed closer to the windows. Increase gravity to Earth standard. 1 full G, the change was immediate and crushing. Jiwoo felt her knees buckle slightly as her full weight returned. Her shoulders dropped, her spine compressed. It was like coming home after a long journey, uncomfortable at first but fundamentally right. In the gallery, she heard gasps and alarmed chirps. From their perspective, she'd just been hammered by an invisible force, nearly driven to her knees. She can barely stand. Someone shouted, "This is cruel," another voice added. "Stop the test." But Jiwoo was already straightening, already adjusting. This was her gravity. This was where she'd learned to walk, to run, to dance. This was the weight she'd carried every day of her life. She held up the pen. On Earth, she said clearly, her voice transmitted to the gallery. This pen weighs 10 grams. At a drop height of 1 meter, it will fall for approximately 0.45 seconds before impact. She extended her arm, holding the pen at shoulder height. In your comfortable 0.3 G environment, the same fall takes 0.8 seconds and the impact force is negligible. You've built your entire civilization around gentle physics, soft landings, forgiving environments. She opened her hand. The pen fell. To the observers in the gallery, it looked wrong, impossibly fast. The pen didn't drift lazily downward, it plummeted, accelerating at 9.8 meters per second squared, building momentum and kinetic energy with every millimeter of its descent. It hit the floor. The crack was audible even through the reinforced walls. The titanium ceramic composite floor, rated for 5,000 newtons of force in standard galactic environments, hadn't accounted for the simple physics of Earth gravity. The pen, weighing 10 grams, striking after a 1-meter fall in 1.0 g, hit with approximately 0.1 newtons of force, negligible by any measure. But that wasn't what broke the floor. The floor broke because Jiwoo had lied. The pen wasn't made of plastic and ink. The waiting was the hardest part. Jiwoo sat in the human quarters, watching the clock count down the hours until the council vote. She had done everything possible. Now the decision rested in alien hands. Heejin paced back and forth across the room, her steps bouncing slightly in the low gravity. I've been monitoring the news feeds. The opinions are all over the place. Some species are calling us saviors. Others are calling us threats, and what's the prediction? Taeyang asked, cleaning his uniform for the third time that morning. 50-50, Heejin said. It could go either way. Jiwoo closed her eyes and tried to calm her racing heart. 2 years of preparation had led to this moment. 2 years of training, studying alien cultures, learning diplomatic protocols. 2 years of Earth's government investing resources and hope into this mission. If the vote failed, humanity would be isolated. Alone in the galaxy, cut off from trade, from knowledge, from the community of spacefaring species, Earth would remain a curiosity, a death world with strange inhabitants who were too dangerous to interact with. If the vote succeeded, everything would change. A message alert broke the silence. Jiwoo opened her eyes and read the text on her screen. It's time. The council is ready to vote. The 3 humans made their way to the council chamber in silence. The hallways seemed longer than before. More aliens stopped to stare at them now. Some with fear, some with curiosity, some with expressions Jiwoo couldn't read at all. The chamber was packed. Every seat filled, every species represented. Jiwoo had never seen it so crowded. Apparently everyone wanted to witness this historic vote. The Shaolin called the session to order. We are gathered to vote on the human petition. This is an unprecedented moment in council history. For the first time, we must decide whether to accept a species from a high-gravity world into our community. The Council Prime's tendrils moved in slow, deliberate patterns. 3 matters are before us today. First, whether to grant humanity access to the outer spiral trade routes. Second, whether to accept human participation in galactic commerce and services. Third, whether to implement monitoring and oversight of human activities in galactic space. Jiwoo felt her stomach tighten. This was it. Everything came down to this vote. Before we begin, the Shaolin continued, Ambassador Jiwoo has provided additional information to the council. I will share it now. A holographic display activated in the center of the chamber. Jiwoo recognized it immediately. It was the classified document she had sent to Theshalin the night before. A complete report on Earth's military capabilities. Gasps and shocked sounds filled the chamber. This document details Earth's complete military strength, Theshalin explained. It includes information about their warships, their weapons, their troop numbers, and their strategic capabilities. This is highly classified information that could be used against Earth if it fell into the wrong hands. Why would they share this? A Horthax delegate called out. Jiwoo stood up. Because trust requires honesty. You're afraid of what we might do with our strength. Instead of hiding it and letting your fears grow, we're showing you exactly what we have. Taeyang activated a section of the data. Earth maintains a fleet of 247 warships. We have 12 million active military personnel and 30 million in reserve. Our weapons include kinetic missiles, energy weapons, and electronic warfare systems. He paused and highlighted another section. What we don't have are biological weapons, planet-destroying weapons, or self-replicating war machines. We developed all of these during our wars on Earth. Then we banned them. We destroyed every single one. Creating them again is now considered the worst crime possible under our laws. Rishalin studied the data carefully. Your ships can accelerate at 4 to 6 times Earth gravity. Our military ships can only handle 1.5 gravities at most. That's correct, Taeyang confirmed. In theory, Earth could build a military force that would be unbeatable in space combat. In theory, Krixthor repeated slowly. But what about in practice? In practice, we have 247 ships, Jiwoo said quietly. We could build thousands more. Our factories could expand our fleet 10 times over within 5 years. But we haven't done that. We built only what we need to defend our own system. She let that information settle over the chamber. This data is a weapon, she continued. Anyone who wants to attack Earth could use this information to find our weaknesses. We're sharing it anyway because we want you to understand something important about humans. Jiwoo walked to the center of the chamber. Her movements were careful and controlled in the low gravity. We learned about war the hard way. Earth's history is filled with conflicts that almost destroyed our entire species. We built weapons that could turn our planet into a dead rock. We killed millions of our own people in stupid, terrible wars. Her voice grew stronger. We didn't become peaceful because we're naturally kind. We became peaceful because we learned what happens when strength goes unchecked. Every human child learns about the War of 5 Continents, about the Pacific Nuclear Exchange, about the collapse of the European Federation. We remember what unlimited violence looks like. Vexen's shell clicked thoughtfully. You're saying your species chose peace after experiencing war? We're saying we understand violence well enough to fear it, Jiwoo replied. And to choose cooperation whenever possible. Yes, we're stronger than you. But we're also very good at controlling that strength because we've had to learn that lesson through blood and fire. Theshalon's tendrils formed a contemplative pattern. No species has ever shared this kind of military intelligence with the Council before. No species has ever had to prove themselves the way we do, Jiwoo said. You see us as dangerous, and you're right. We are dangerous, but we're also controlled, purposeful, and committed to peace. We choose cooperation over conquest. A crystalline being named Shard Clarity 17 spoke up. Its voice made strange harmonic sounds that the translator struggled with. The logic is interesting. A species that can regulate itself shows advanced intelligence, but history teaches us that self-regulation often fails under pressure. You're absolutely right, Taeyang agreed. That's why we're proposing formal oversight. Earth will allow Council inspectors to monitor our military development. We'll let you verify that we're following all peace treaties. When we work in galactic space, we'll operate under Council rules and supervision. You would give up your independence? Krixthor asked, clearly surprised. We would share decision-making, Jiwoo corrected. Earth remains independent in our own solar system. But when we work in galactic space, we follow galactic laws. That's what it means to join a community. You accept both the benefits and the restrictions. Shard Clarity 17 pulsed with light. This addresses the primary concerns. If properly verified, it shows capacity for rational cooperation. Other delegates began speaking up. Some voiced support, others remained skeptical, but Jiwoo could feel the mood shifting. They were no longer debating whether to keep humans out. They were debating how to safely let humans in. The Shallan raised its tendrils for silence. The time has come to vote. All delegates, prepare your decisions. Remember that this vote will shape galactic civilization for generations to come. Jiwoo returned to her seat between Hyejin and Taeyang. Her heart was pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. In the low gravity, every heartbeat felt stronger, more noticeable. Whatever happens, Hyejin whispered, you did everything you could. We all did, Jiwoo whispered back. The voting display appeared in the center of the chamber. One by one, species began casting their votes. Each vote appeared as a colored light on the display. Velkari. Approve all 3 measures. Green light, Horthax. Approve all 3 measures. Green light, Nimari. Approve with minor reservations. Yellow light, Threnix. Approve with enhanced monitoring. Yellow light, the lights kept appearing. Green, green, yellow, green, red, green, yellow. Jiwoo tried to count them but lost track. Her hands were shaking slightly. More votes came in. The chamber was silent except for the soft sounds of aliens breathing, floating, clicking, or humming. Everyone was watching the display. Green, 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 red, yellow, green. Hyejin grabbed Jiwoo's hand and squeezed it tight. Taeyang sat perfectly still, his military training showing in his controlled posture, but Jiwoo could see tension in his jaw. The last few votes appeared. Green, yellow, green, red, green. Then the display changed. It showed the final tally. 73% approval, 20% approval with reservations, 7% rejection. The Council had voted to accept humanity. For a moment, the chamber was completely silent. Then it erupted. Some aliens cheered. Others made angry sounds. Most just started talking all at once, creating a chaos of noise. Jiwoo sat frozen, unable to process what had just happened. They had won. Humanity had been accepted into galactic civilization. Hyejin was crying. tears floating in strange patterns in the low gravity. Taeyang had his eyes closed, his lips moving in what might have been a prayer or just relief. The Shaolin called for order, tendrils waving emphatically. The vote is recorded. Humanity is granted access to the outer spiral trade routes with full commercial participation rights. Monitoring and oversight protocols will be established within 30 days.